Haiti's national police force is struggling to deal with spiking levels of gang-related violence. That has left much of the country off limits to government and led to routine gun battles with officers. The UN envoy to the Caribbean island nation says the situation is so dire that police will not win a fight against criminal gangs without the deployment of an international rapid action force.
The situation in Haiti is grave. Gang-driven violence has reached new heights. On average, we faced one kidnapping every 6 hours in 2022. Indiscriminate violence led to 2,183 murders in 2022, with presidential candidates, police directors, and the very poorest in society all as victims.
Bob Rae is Canada's ambassador to the UN. Bob Rae is Canada's ambassador to the United Nations. Ambassador Rae, thank you very much for speaking with us. Can you tell us about your new efforts to try to convince additional countries, more countries, to join efforts to sanction Haiti's elites?
It's a process. I mean, there's a number of countries that very much prefer to follow the UN in their process. The UN process takes a lot of time because you're finding the experts. The experts have to do their reviews. They present some names. The permanent members of the Security Council have something to say about which names are to go ahead. So it's for us in Canada, this was an issue that the Prime Minister had identified as one of our priorities in the meetings that he had here in New York in September. So we've obviously proceeded according to the Canadian legislation. And we've been leading the way, and now we're talking with our partners about let's move forward a bit more together. I'd say we're no resistance. Nobody's saying no. We don't want to do any of these things. It's all about process and making sure that we get to the right place.
Are you? I
think it's fair to say that the sanctions have already had an impact, and we're certainly hearing that from people on the ground in Haiti. And that's what I was able to discuss with the Security Council earlier this week.
Now, are you convinced that your efforts are going to lead to additional sanctions?
I'm not going to speculate on that. I mean, I like to think efforts are always going to be productive. Let's keep working on it in a positive way. As I said, on the principle that there should be more people being sanctioned by more countries. Listening to the speeches on Tuesday, there was no doubt in my mind that that's the direction a lot of countries are already going in, and we just have to make sure that that's what happens.
The UN Special Envoy to Haiti said she heard, quote, caution from both Canada and the U.S. about leading an international armed force in the country rather than a definite no. Has Canada made a final decision on this?
Well, I think it's important to stress one thing, Katie, and that is we've made a clear decision. The Prime Minister's made a decision, and it's being followed through on to really engage with the Haitians, with other members of CARICOM, with the United States, with France, with European countries, to really engage on Haiti. That's what we're doing. That's why he's asked me to go down to Haiti as often as I've gone since our meetings in September. And that's why we're continuing to get into more details with the Haitian National Police Force about what more needs to be done and exactly how to do it. So Cabinet will not be making a decision until there's a final proposal or a proposal that's made to them about what further steps need to be taken to engage. But we've already begun the supply of more equipment. We've already begun a much more intensive dialogue with experts about how this thing needs to proceed on the ground. But the premise of the Canadian dialogue is that we really do want to learn from the experience of the previous missions, which is to say, you might get a very big response from a big mission, but usually those things are not sustainable, either at home or in the country. So you really have to look at what's sustainable over time and what's going to have the greatest long-term impact. And that's what we're looking at.
So as part of that process, you just said that Cabinet has not made any final decision because they've got to wait for a proposal. Are you the person that would bring the proposal to Cabinet to say, here are the recommendations? I know that you were coming up with recommendations as a result of your trip to Haiti, but I'm wondering, are you the person who says, OK, here are my recommendations, this is what you should consider? Is that you? And what are you asking them to do?
No, that's not me. I don't make recommendations to cabinet. I make recommendations to ministers and to the prime minister, and others make recommendations as well. So this is not it's not just my show. It's one that belongs to a lot of different people who are working very much together. We rely heavily on Sébastien Carrière, who's our ambassador in Port-au-Prince, who is doing frankly a fantastic job. We have a whole team that's being pulled together in Ottawa. I obviously meet with them regularly, both virtually and in person. And so we're working on that basis. But no, it's not going to be a personal recommendation for me alone.
So I guess the thing that Canadians want to know is, what are the next steps here going to be for Canada? And is it going to involve leading some sort of military operation on the ground, military contingent on the ground? Is that still an option to Canada at this point?
Well, the Prime Minister has made it pretty clear to all of us that no options are off the table, and when it comes to looking at further steps, but I want to stress further steps, because the initial options that we've been talking about have all been implemented. That is to say, a much more joined up approach on the ground, providing more equipment to the PNH, looking at what more we can do on the humanitarian side. How do we encourage the political dialogue in the country? These things are already being done. These steps have already been taken. And it's the intensification of the discussion with the security forces that I think is something that we need to continue to do. That will lead to a discussion about, well, what exactly would be the nature of an additional mission, and what exactly that will entail in terms of military and policing are things that are still being discussed. And I don't think it's important I know Canadians want to know. Of course, Canadians want to know. We all want to know. But the fact is, we also want to get it right. And I think sometimes it's important to think more consequentially about these things than impulsively. Everybody wants to resolve the security situation in Haiti and provide the people of Haiti with some relief from the degree of difficulty and personal insecurity that's being created by the gangs in the country. But we've also got to figure out, you don't want to just do something that's going to have an impact for a week and then everybody looks good, and then you realize it's not a long-term solution. We've got to find some more sustainable responses to this thing.
I understand that a decision has not been made now, and the Prime Minister says that nothing is off the table. From your perspective, what is the most useful way Canada can contribute to solutions right now, if that kind of decision isn't on the table at this moment?
Well, Katie, you've known me long enough to say that whenever a reporter puts an if into a question, I tend to back off and say that I don't do iffy answers. I'm not going to speculate on that, except to say that I've made it very clear in everything that I've been saying to people, both publicly and privately, is that we need to make sure that the whole of government is working together, and we need to make sure that we're really dealing with as broad a group of people internationally as we can, so that whatever we do is going to be inclusive and is going to make sure that it's directed very, very much at providing sustainable solutions for what is a very serious problem, and what is a very tricky and for many people a dangerous situation. And we can't ignore the problem, and that's why we're not closing the door on anything. What we're saying is we want to make sure that whatever we do is going to be sustainable, and it's going to be Haitian-led and Haitian-owned. This is not a Canadian solution to a problem. This is a Haitian solution that may require additional help from others, including from Canada, but we're taking it very much in that direction. And part of the problem with saying it's got to be Haitian-led, Haitian-owned, is we don't have a government in Haiti at the moment. We don't have a permanent constitutional, duly elected structure that can say this is what the people of Haiti want. And that's why we're insistent on a dialogue taking place inside Haiti with more people. And we're working hard on that. Ambassador Carrière is very much engaged in that on a daily basis in really trying to broaden the number of groups that are going to be able to engage in this transition to an election and transition to a democratically elected government.
Ambassador Rae, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you, Katie. It's good to be with you again. Thanks.